After a historic blowout loss to the Raiders, the Chargers have finally fired Staley and GM Tom Telesco. The Dodgers have traded for an ace starter, a fragile one, but an ace nonetheless. And the Galaxy are working to land a big piece of their rebuild puzzle. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the Faithful Angelinos Morning Report. And I was uploading the video, and then I found out the news from Dean Spanos, which we will get to in a moment. It is December 15th, 2023. We've added a new subscriber to the Angelino Familia yesterday. Thank you for getting in on the ground floor. And if you like being in the know about LA sports, quickly clack the like button. Clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It lets you know we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. I do try to get back at you. I like hearing from you guys. By the way, I apologize for the noise. Obviously, I just found out about the Chargers news, and I wanted to get it to you as quickly as possible. Before we go through the news and notes, though, look at the scoreboard. Last night, the Raiders scored the most points in franchise history, and the Chargers allowed the most points in a game in franchise history. The less spoken in terms of strategy in that game, the better. Raiders 63, Chargers 21. Meanwhile, James Harden scored 28 points. The Clippers, they started to struggle once they traded for Harden, but they're starting to figure things out. They've won 6 consecutive games. Clippers 121, Golden State 113. Meanwhile, today, the Lakers are playing San Antonio at 4:30. But let's get to the news. Breaking within just the last few minutes. There was a post on social media from the Chargers signed by Dean Spanos. They have fired coach Staley and general manager Tom Telesco. Staley becomes only the second coach in Chargers history to be fired during the season. To show you just how dramatic the fall for the Bolts had been under his stewardship. The only other one was Kevin Gilbride back in 1998 during the Ryan Leaf debacle. Staley's record with the Bolts in about 2 3/4 seasons was 24-24, which included some dramatic crash and burns. It included missing the playoffs in his first year with questionable play calls in a win-or-go-home game at Las Vegas. It included a historic collapse in last year's playoffs to Jacksonville. And of course, last night's blowout loss to Las Vegas, a team that was shut out in its last game, I might add. No interim coach has been named to replace Staley yet, although Spanos said that would be handled in short order. The Chargers are 5-9. They have lost 5 of their last 6 games, and in a season where the Kansas City Chiefs are actually vulnerable for the first time in a long time, the Chargers did not take advantage. They are at last place in the AFC West. General manager Tom Telesco had the post since 2013. He's been there for 11 years, obviously, and under his watch, the Bolts were 84-92 with only 3 playoff appearances. Now, I was at that Chargers-Raiders game last night, and I remember the quote from Staley after the game. Quote, "Games like this happen in the NFL," unquote. Do they? Does every game really make history like the one between the Chargers and Raiders last night? And by the way, if you have a game that makes history in that direction, do you still get to keep your job? He actually tried to argue that he should. But even analysts at halftime were saying the Chargers needed to make NFL history by firing Staley in the locker room. Now, granted, that's a hot take, and we don't do hot takes on this channel, but that's how dramatic the fall was. As I mentioned in the opening, the less said about this game in terms of X's and O's, the better, because this was not about strategy. Although what I can tell you from having been in that stadium, you saw massive holes that the Raiders took advantage of, massive defensive miscommunications, massive defensive breakdowns. And I will grant you that the Chargers were dinged up, but Las Vegas was without Josh Jacobs. Las Vegas was without 2 starting offensive linemen and still managed to put up 63 points on the Chargers. This was not about strategy. It's very simple. The Raiders played hard, and the Chargers didn't even try. Straight and simple. So, the Chargers are going for a house cleaning during the season. We will keep you posted as to what will happen next in terms of an interim coach or an interim GM. Tampa Bay has agreed to trade their ace, Tyler Glasnow, to the Dodgers. Now, the deal depends on Glasnow signing a contract extension. LA believes that can be done as early as today. In the trade, LA would also land a platoon outfielder, Manuel Margot. The Dodgers are going to wind up sending Ryan Pepio and outfielder Johnny LaDuca back. Glasnow is electric. He's 6'7". That wingspan, that ball just comes whipping right out of his hands. He comes at you in the upper 90s. Matter of fact, if he weren't so injury prone, and that's the key here, he would be arguably among the best pitchers in the game. He is electrifying, but fragile. Glasnow at this moment probably figures to be an opening day starter. Can you really trust it to Walker Buehler, considering he's coming off of a second Tommy John surgery? But right now, if you look at the Dodgers rotation, it's clearly not enough. They have not solved the problems that plagued them last year. Remember, their pitching was very fragile in terms of injuries last year. Glasnow does not solve that problem. Last year, he did pitch a season-high innings, but it was only 120. That is not a solution. So right now, the rotation, in no particular order, would be Glasnow, probably Bobby Miller, probably Walker Buehler, and then you're looking at Ryan Yarbrough and Emmett Sheehan. So there's going to be another move in the works, I would reckon, for the Dodgers. Because consider this, Pepio probably penciled in as the Dodgers' number 3 starter had they not made this trade. So how much did they actually solve? Now, what I can tell you is that they did, in fact, speak with the representatives for Japanese pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto. There is no deal imminent. He is trying to find other places to sign. And in addition to that, I would also suggest that the trade rumors that you're hearing for Corbin Burnes are probably not going to happen. Burnes is represented by Scott Morris, and the Dodgers don't like to deal with that guy. Also with the Dodgers, Angels owner Artie Moreno allegedly declined an opportunity to match the deal that the Dodgers gave Shohei Ohtani. And guys, let's just be real. Moreno tried to sell the Angels a couple of years ago before taking control back. Assume for the moment that Moreno wants to sell the team again. I'm not saying he does, but assume it. You know what makes a team a lot more palatable on the market? Lower payroll. So there was no way he was matching that deal. No way. The LA Galaxy have sent reserve striker Preston Judd to San Jose in exchange for so-called general allocation money. So what they're doing is they're clearing money in order to help rebuild the team. It sounds great, but how do you do it? Well, The Athletic is reporting that the Galaxy made a record bid to sign winger Ramon Sosa from CA Talleres, which is an Argentinian club. Talks remain ongoing. Sosa is 24. As a winger, he can play either the right or left side, which matters because the Galaxy were definitely a flawed soccer team last year. They had somebody in the center of the top of the 4-3-3 that they could trust in Chicharito, but the only winger that they could rely on was Tyler Boyd. So the idea of getting a young winger in there would probably be very helpful. Sosa scored 10 goals, by the way, last year. Paul George missed his first Clippers game of the season with a sore left hip. It was originally called a groin injury when he got hurt, but screw it. The hip is groin adjacent after all. At this point, George is considered day-to-day. PJ Tucker did not demand a trade, but he did tell a website called Clutch Points, quote, "I don't have a role on this team right now. I'm not playing, I'm out of the lineup," unquote. Translation, he might go knocking on the general manager's door soon. 4-star defensive lineman Jide Abasiri has decommitted from Minnesota in order to play for USC. The website On3 calls him the 49th ranked defensive lineman among high school players for the class of 2024. 270, which is already larger than your average college football defensive lineman. And he's a teenager, which means he's probably going to grow a little more. Abasiri said that new defensive coordinator DeAnton Lynn made a great impression on him, and that playing for USC opens doors outside of football, which we already knew. Obviously, over the last few weeks, we've beaten the hell out of the story that people are leaving UCLA football. Just yesterday, tight end Carson Bryant committed to transfer to Utah. But the Bruins added 2 players on defense. Both of them safeties. One from Oregon, Brian Addison, who was once a 4-star prospect. He only played 4 games for the Ducks last year before leaving the team for personal reasons. Marcus Radcliffe is coming from San Diego State, very productive with the Aztecs, 50 tackles and a pick. Yahoo Sports is claiming that Zach LaVine wants out of Chicago and wants to come to the Lakers, but the Chicago Sun-Times is reporting that the Bulls aren't finding, quote, real market interest, unquote, in LaVine. Finally, the Rams tight end Tyler Higbee and wide receiver Tutu Atwell have returned to practice. Sean McVay did not commit to playing either of them on Sunday against Washington. Would you let me know what you think in the comments thread? Where do the Chargers go from here now that they've gotten rid of Staley? What's next for the Dodgers rotation? And if you enjoy the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelinos. Sorry for the noise, but we're still talking LA sports, even in the craziest of places. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelinos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.